So it turns out that Mark Twain actually had an ancestor that was a witch hunter and burner. Edward Clements. What's his name? Edward Clements is, an ancestor of Mark Twain. Samuel Clemens, right? Edward Clemens, Samuel Clements. He was a witch hunter, burner, an Irish ancestor. So Edward Clements was an Irishman. So Mark Twain himself was Irish, so he actually had some of the anti-Catholic, Irish nativist know-nothing spirit in 1854 when he was in St. Louis. He mentioned that there was the know-nothing organ, but he also talked about how there's so many foreigners and there's so many Catholics and how he hated the Pope, and he seems to be a very virulent critic against all things religious, right? What, is there a God? How come nobody ever says anything about the devil? Nobody gives him any credit, It just goes on and on about the devil. And he says actually he doesn't care about race or ethnicity or creed or religion or any type of, ultimately, basically, if a person is human, that's the worst thing that they could be to Samuel Clemens or to Mark Twain. So Mark Twain basically was like, if you're the damned human race, right? If you're a human, you're a big enough monster for me. You don't need anything extra to be a bigger monster than just to be a human being. The reason why I'm talking about the Irishness is because Mark Twain had seemed like he was for the, he was against the Irish, but it seemed like he started to appreciate the indomitable individual character of the Irish, because they said that they had named his most, the all-American novel, Huckleberry Finn, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, was named after an Irish person. Finn, Finnegan's Wake, Finn McCool. Finn, that does sound Irish, doesn't it? So whereas, he might have actually had some anti-Irish sentiments to begin with, he eventually ends off with being very much pro-Irish, because he named his, main story, his main character of this book was named after, this person. So we have, let's see, what are we doing? We're going to finish this right up, and then we're going to go to the German Kentucky book, okay? So it's going to be like a Gripshover addendum. Let's see, gangs in New York, right? That's the Philadelphia riots. Cultural war took place in Illinois, 1892. Democrat John Peter Altgeld denounced the Republicans. He says the spirit which enacted the Alien and Sedition law is the spirit which actuated the Know-Nothing Party. The spirit which is forever carping about the foreign-born citizen trying to bridge his privileges is too deeply seated in the party. So basically just fucking hatred, just want to oppress and repress aristocratic and know-nothing principles have been circulating in its system so long it require more than one somersault to shake the poison out of its bones. So that's pretty intense, actually. So fuck the Know-Nothing Party. It's like a disease. It's a cancer. It's not white supremacy. White supremacy is a disease. It's a cyst. It directly is. But white supremacy fed into the Know-Nothing, just like it fed into the Confederates, just like it fed into the fucking Whigs. Really, actually, all of America, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants have had issues with lots of groups of people, right? Their shit don't stink. If you're an English-speaking Protestant, your shit don't stink. You're better than everybody. It is interesting with the Irish. The Irish seems like they're just barely one step above black folks. In fact, they might be worse since they're not as strong. But Irish and the Chinese were both working on the railroads. The Irish were treated as, poor, shitty peasants. And so sort of the anti-Irish bias had come from England. And the fact that they came from a potato famine, right? So that automatically sort of implies disease and sickness. Some Catholic churches were burned to the ground, especially in the Philadelphia, 1844. Nativist riots were the riots which precipitated, or which were before, had preceded, but it led to the precipitation of the 1850s Know-Nothing riots. The 1850s Know-Nothings fucking took America over, okay? So actually in 1844, when the Philadelphia riots happened, that was probably something new. People were like, what the hell is that? And then all of a sudden everybody, got down with the party. I Know Nothing, so like the Masons, the Freemasons, Skulls and Bones, the Secret Society, the Know Nothing Party, they didn't know jack shit. The American Party discriminated against immigrants. Progressives should preempt this movement by having a rainbow American Party that is nice to immigrants and the freedom to religion. So yes, if you can have whatever religion you want, the rainbow American Party, so the American Rainbows, the American Rainbow Party, a rainbow coalition, an an anti-nationalist nationalism, sort of a we're all one, but we all, or maybe a multinationalist, a multicultural nationalism, a rainbow nationalism. First Catholic American president was JFK, elected in 1961. His Catholic roots mattered during the election. Joe Biden is Catholic. There are riots and bloodshed in Cincinnati, New Orleans, St. Louis, Columbus, Chicago, Louisville between Germans and Know Nothing. Cincinnati mob violence grew to considerable proportions. In Chicago, rioting between Germans and the police were curbed only by calling in the National Guard. So the militia were called out. Remember, with the bridge, they put the bridge down. And it was the Chicago was the beer lager riots. More than 100 businesses, private homes, and tenements have been vandalized, looted, and were burned, including the block-long row of houses known as Quinn's Row. Historians estimate death toll at 19 to 22. Catholics include Bishop Martin John Spalding of Louisville said the death toll is well over 100, with entire families consumed in the fires. So that's Louisville, 1855. Know Nothing riots. Citizens were dragged from their homes, attacked in the streets and their places of work. Weapons, arms, and later bodies of the dead were stored in Louisville Metro Hall. So they had bodies of the dead was actually stored at Louisville Metro Hall. So they could have easily got rid of lots of bodies, right? The old Jefferson County Courthouse, now the mayor's office, and Know Nothing stronghold at the time. So they had weapons, they had ammunition, they had guns, they had dead bodies. They didn't give a fuck. Sporadic violence and attacks that occurred in the year, months leading up to August 6th, continuing for some time afterwards, only by Louisville Mayor John Barbee's intervention, despite being a Know Nothing, were the bloodshed and the property destruction brought to an end, including his personal intervention that saved 2 Catholic churches, the new German parish of St. Martin of Tours and the Cathedral of the Assumption, from destruction by the mob. The riots had a profound impact on immigration to Louisville, causing more than 10,000 citizens to pack and leave for good. So the Germans went to St. Louis and Chicago, Milwaukee, a large group who left in 1856 for Prairie City, Kansas. So they said, fuck, Louisville's fucking, this is psycho, this is fucking bullshit. They have to fucking deal with this, we can't even fucking vote. So they went to Kansas. They moved to Prairie City, Kansas. Only the Civil War, the trade and commerce they represented, halted the exodus, right? So 1855, we saw Columbus, Cincinnati, New Orleans, St. Louis, Chicago, Louisville. There was violence. Within 10 years, much had changed in the United States and Louisville. Immigrants brought new cultures, customs, leaving their mark in a new land. Louisville, the site of the nation's worst immigrant and violence, elected a German-born man, Philip Tompert, as mayor. So 10 years after the 1855 Know Nothing riots, 1965, Civil War is over. Now you got a German mayor. You also, the headquarters of the Know Nothings turned into a German theater. So, and then we don't hear anything about the Know Nothings today. Though, I would not be surprised to know that the Know Nothing Secret Society of the Star Spangled Banner is still around today. The Black Hand is still around. These secret societies have been going on forever. Freemasons have been around for how long? Skulls and Bones. There's only 800 members of Skulls and Bones at one time. That's it. Only 800 members. That's incredible. It's amazing. So if you get into that club, right, you get to see everybody else's faces, and you can't say nothing about it, right? John Kerry's like, I know lots of secrets. They put a historical marker between 10th and 11th Streets on West Main, the site of the burning a row of frame houses owned by an Irishman, Francis Patrick Quinn. So they put it right at the, where Francis Patrick Quinn had happened. Bloody Monday is right next to the Kentucky Lotto store. The street was barricaded and the buildings were burned. Several were shot while trying to escape the flames, including Mr. Francis Patrick Quinn, who was subsequently thrown back into the fire. By daybreak, the polls had taken possession of by the Know Nothings in pursuance of their preconcerted game. They use every stratagem or device to hinder the vote of every man who cannot manifest to the guardians of the polls his soundness in the Know Nothing question. 2 foreigners driven from the polls, forced to run a gauntlet. They made them run gauntlets. Beat unmercifully, stoned and stabbed. In the case of one man, the Honorable William Thomason, formerly a member of Congress from this district, interfered, and while appealing to the maddening crowd to cease their acts of disorder and violence, Mr. Thomason was struck from behind and beat. Cannons, muskets, revolvers, ropes, guns, pitchforks, muskets, shotguns, cannons. In the afternoon, a general row occurred on Shelby Street, extended from Main to Broadway. Were unable to ascertain the facts concerning the disturbance. 14 or 15 men were shot, including Officer Williams, Joe Selvage, and others. 2 or 3 were killed, and a number of houses, chiefly German coffee houses, broken into and pillaged. So 2 or 3 were killed. So before it was like 20, now they have like 22, 23 maybe unknowns. No names are given, but they said that the 15 were shot, 14 or 15 were shot. I heard a cannon was also shot off in Cincinnati, so only thinking one person died. There was bloodshed that happened in Cincinnati, bloodshed happened in Louisville. These white Anglo-Saxon Protestant mobs demonized Catholics as members of a sexually perverse, treasonous conspiracy, secretly trying to turn America over to the Pope. The Jesuits hated the Jesuits. George Prentice, editor of the Louisville Daily Journal, precursor to the Courier Journal, newspaper predecessor, was widely accused of inflaming the mobs and editorials in the days before the riots. He denounced the most pestilent influence of the foreign swarms loyal to a pope he called an inflated Italian despot who keeps people kissing his toes all day. So what you gonna do? What you do, a pope lover? You a pope lover, huh? You loving that pope? Armed Brewster's Brewery at Liberty and Baxter is burned. Cannons are rolled to the doors of St. Martin of Tours Church, the Cathedral of Assumption. St. Patrick's Church are searched for arms. Immigrant homes and businesses are looted. Quinn's Row at 10th and Main Streets is burned with the inhabitants barricaded inside. At least 22 persons are killed and many more are injured. So they rolled cannons to the doors of St. Martin of Tours Church and Cathedral of the Assumption. St. Patrick's Church, they're searched for arms, right? They looted them. Statement of Ludwig Sterling, Stierlin, about the effect of Bloody Monday on the Germans in Louisville in the 1850s. And I think Sterling is the guy who actually published, the former editor of the Louisville Anzinger, and made the above statements in the German language history of Louisville's Germans published in 1873. So the statement of Ludwig Sterling, he says, if one can designate the years from 1849 to 1855 as the period of storm and stress for the German people, one may also similarly designate the time after the previously mentioned know-nothing atrocities until the outbreak of the Civil War as a time of weariness and lethargy. So before, it was storm and stress, but then afterwards it was weariness, lethargy. Just basically they were destroyed. Their spirit was destroyed. They didn't want to go no more. The violence had been used, and they had been taken, no right to vote. This weariness and lethargy was even so great, if yet not greater than the spirit of effort and excitement that had previously existed. In fact, a general apathy and despondency seized the Germans. For years, they took part in neither local nor state elections, indeed left the political field totally to the know-nothings, to the sorrow of a large number of native-born Americans antagonistic to this prescriptive party, and led, so to say, only a vegetarian's life. Initially, they scarcely still dared to visit the public beer gardens on Sunday afternoon out of fear of a confrontation with the bullies who were brought in by the know-nothings on the bloody election day and remained in hopes of being paid for future services. So they brought in thugs, just like the fucking plug uglies and the fucking yin yangs or whatever the fuck your motherfuckers were. They had the rig rags and the fucking symphony orchestra. I don't know, the Philadelphia boys, definitely the plug uglies. So they had like basically fucking gun thugs, right? They had a fucking mafia group that they used for their violence. They had Hell's Angels, right? Instead of actually doing their fucking dirty work, they had outsourced their their torture. So just like America. So you have know-nothings to the sorrow of a large number of native-born American antagonistic to this prescriptive party. They don't even want to go to the fucking beer halls, the public beer gardens, right? On Sunday afternoon, which is what they used to do. They used to party festival and go to the, get a drink with the fucking German buddies. But because of confrontation with the bullies and the know-nothings on Bloody Monday, that election day, remained in hopes of being paid for their future services. Thugs still stayed around because they wanted, in hopes of paid for future services. So they stayed around hoping that they could kick some more fucking Irish and German and Catholic ass. So this man, Sterling, was a former editor of the Louisville Anzinger and made the above statement in a German language history of Louisville's Germans published in 1873. So basically, it was just a sad melancholy after this shit happened. And why wouldn't it? That's basically what fucking violence is supposed to do, right? How can you have any pride in yourself once violence has been used against you? A religious social race riot in the 1840s during the presidential campaign in 1844, the German editor of the Louisville paper, the Beobachter, a.k.a. the Observer, advised the German population of Louisville to arm themselves and enforce their rights to vote at the polls. They should have done that, and if they would have done that, then they would have, more of a say-so than what they actually do today. You have, life. Life is just, it's hard. So the Beobachter, that's a Louisville newspaper. They also had the Morning Courier, who is for the nativists. You also had the Anzeiger, which is a.k.a. the Indicator. The Beobachter is a.k.a. the Observer.